The Council has assembled. They are eager to hear your report.
Hello. We begin tonight's meeting of the Council by calling the Council to order. Hello to everyone, and thank you for coming and joining us. The Council's a live Twitch talk show and podcast discussing Star Wars: The Old Republic. I'm Elise, and with me are my fellow Council members, Sakari.
Hello, everybody.
Redna.
Who, me?
Yes, you. And Magic Ace. And
Hello.
guest.
And Magic Baby. She says
Yes.
hi.
Magic Spawn.
Oh, now she's spoiling for views. How are we supposed to compete with that cuteness?
No, and
Give
she's
it time.
Oh, which is awesome. However, it's throw color magic. I'm just telling you.
I'm gonna need to make some on my own, I think.
Bows, you go, man.
No, the kid.
I already tried the bows gimmick.
The bow is not the cuteness.
I already tried the bows gimmick. It does not work.
And I was totally
Yeah, that's true. Sakari has tried firsthand.
talking about here. Tonight's topic is going to be over the recent Kotaku article and the roadmap. So for those of you who don't know, the Kotaku article that we're talking about was the recent Jason Schreier article about the Anthem development, but buried in it was a statement related to Star Wars: The Old Republic and its I guess current state and or future. Did you want me to, I don't know if I should go more in depth of that or we should save it for the deliberation. I'm kind of thinking more.
Yeah, I think an overall kind of overview is probably good, just so that anybody who's not read the article kind of knows what the deal was about, but very, very brief, because I'm sure we're going to dig into it pretty deeply as we go.
Oh, so do you want me to like say what the actual
Yeah, you can just...
is right here?
Yeah, I'd do that. Just say, here's basically what it was about.
So the article is about Anthem, the upcoming action third-person Destiny / Division MMO light game, although we don't know if it's really more going to be like an online shooter or whatever. We don't know much.
There's
but
only been like 6 minutes of gameplay ever even shown, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But we do know SkillUp said that he was approached at E3 last year by EA folks saying that Division content creators will be interested in Anthem. So that leads you to believe that it's going to be
like EA's answer maybe to
the Division.
Division, right.
I'm totally curious, just to expand on that a little bit. Is it a sandbox style? Or
the Division? So I haven't really played the Division. I know of it because I've watched gameplay or whatever, but I haven't actually played it yet. So define exactly what do you mean by sandbox?
Well, you said content creators would be interested. So does that mean that generally most of the content is community driven?
So they have like PvE sections and they have a PvP section. They have their version of kind of like a raid. I can't remember what that's called, but it has a name. There's loot. It's an RPG. There are classes. There's a Keel class and a tank class and DPS classes, but they're not hard Trinity classes.
I'm so
like
glad
Destiny.
Kidley is here. Kidley says in chat, the Division is open world with some closed areas.
Mm-hmm.
And any other light you want to shed on it, Kidley, feel free. We'll make sure it gets put in.
Yeah. So that's essentially.
Oh, and the only other question is then, does that mean that it's on a this is console also? Cross-platform? That's what I'm looking for.
That's what we understand. Since they did the bigger reveal at E3 at the Microsoft press conference, I would imagine it's on both Xbox and PC and PlayStation.
Right.
Because it's really for them now.
To me, it's kind of like, I think Division probably defined a new subgenre of gaming, right? A new kind of game, and I think my theory, at least from what I've seen so far, is that Anthem is kind of EA's answer to that. It's their contender in that
I mean,
in that market segment.
but Destiny and The Division are similar. It's just one is first person and one is third person, and The Division is much more looter. Destiny, I think, is closer to a more like a traditional MMO of that new MMO type than Division, kind of is how it feels to me, but
Right.
that's my personal opinion.
Right. And by
and
content creators, Elion D says probably mean more along the lines of SWTOR influencers than actual, YouTubers or whatever, as opposed to people actually making game content.
I mean, like, as in developers, correct. So Skillup is a content creator, and he was a did a lot of the Division content to the point where he essentially is an influencer for the Division. Actually gets to talk to some of the like producers and whatnot of the game, for quotes. So yeah.
So we have this article that gets published, and the article is talking about Anthem and all of the resource focus that BioWare is giving to Anthem.
Mm-hmm. And in it was buried a statement that said that BioWare had discussed ending development on the multiplayer online game Star Wars: The Old Republic. Those sources said, although another person then said, familiar with the story, told me recently the plans are still up in the air. And then after that came out, like all the follower publications.
Yes, the very many. The Storm.
This particular author tends to scoop a lot of stuff. And so whenever he puts out some scoop, a lot of the other like big name game journalism platforms, Polygon, Forbes, IGN, I can't remember, there was another one I'm forgetting, that's another big one, all kind of like released articles basically repeating what he said and kind of framing it, I guess, in slightly different ways. But
to make it exclusive. The only thing exclusive about it is that they said it.
Like did something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have this whole storm that's happened. As everybody knows, there was a big discussion in the community about it. People taking different things. It hit Reddit, it hit Twitter. Everybody was talking about it. And we'll discuss this a little later in the show. It seems that BioWare did kind of have an answer to it, although they didn't say that we're answering this. So we'll get into that here in a moment. Magic, would you like to tell people about where they can find us?
Only if people like to hear Magic Baby. If that's the case, then I would love to. And you can totally find us after our live broadcast everywhere recorded episodes are found, like podcasts. You can also check out our YouTube channel. It's great. We have lots of stuff there. You can also check out our Facebook page. We have facebook.com/CouncilSWTOR, our personal website, which is councilswtor.com, and Twitter at the CouncilSWTOR. But wait, there's more. You can also find us at patreon.com/thecouncilSWTOR. Also, there's Google.
So if you would like to purchase this handy package of just $19.99 for... That's hilarious. All right, guys. So obviously we're already starting this discussion. We are going to do our best to kind of stay chilled out tonight. Just have a nice, easygoing discussion about this because we fully acknowledge that spirits run high about this kind of a thing. Feel free to share with us in chat. If there's something that we feel is pertinent that somebody has said, we'll make sure to mention it as we go. That said, let us get into our icebreaker section. The icebreaker is where we kind of just ask a more surface level question just to get the whole discussion going. The icebreaker tonight is, what were your first impressions of the Kotaku article that we just mentioned? Magic, what about you?
My first impressions are I don't read articles like that, so, oh, look, it's another article about stuff. But if you want a legit answer, I've got 3 reasons why I don't read these kind of articles. One, because I personally have never been into this kind of stuff. 2017 was the first year I did anything other than just play the game. I mean, having Twitter following the SWTOR was like a big step for me in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm just not the person who does that kind of stuff. Reason number 2, I don't like naysayers. And when the game ends, the game ends. It's had a great run, you know?
Yeah.
If it happens, it happens. So me reading about it and getting all flustered and freaked out is kind of pointless. I have a lot going on, in case you can't tell. And I don't have time for that. Yeah, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to freak out. If the game ends, either I don't play another game or I play another game, and Lord knows my phone's full of games. So, I mean, that's reason number 2. Reason number 3 that I don't want to read it is because people have been saying the game is dead since launch. So
Yeah,
when the
true.
game dies, it's gonna die, guys. It's at this point, reading this article to me would just feel like beating a dead horse. I do think there's some good points that I heard Elise and Red and Scar talking about, Council. I got to tune into part of one of Volk's live broadcasts, and he talked about it. And I heard some good points in it, things I liked, but it was nice to listen to other people's take on it rather than just read it, because I don't want all the negativity. I liked hearing a little bit of it, and that was enough. Once I was done, I was ready to just,
Yeah,
say, okay,
just kind
it was
of
nice
enough.
tuning in.
Maybe just enough to know what happened and then move on.
Yeah,
You got the
yeah,
Cliff Notes version.
Pretty much, because I have Gin Chat on. Negativity is out there, okay? I've got enough. So that my first impression is, oh look, another one of those articles. Keep on going.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So my first impression is kind of the same thing. I mean, I have definitely noticed the slowdown of game content here. With the story. I feel like the two most recent flashpoints that came out didn't really advance any of the story. So I think I have perceived for myself that SWTOR is kind of in it's kind of like James. Yeah, exactly.
Purgatory.
James Bond, when he crosses his and he can like make his heart stop, but he's not actually dead. He's kind of like that, where it's just kind of waiting for a little while because of something else going on, and then hopefully, at least what I was hoping is that it'll come back after that. So fair enough. So this article didn't really get me because I guess Magic, I kind of agree with you in that I fully expect that WoW's servers are going to turn off one day. Every game has its run, and so it's inevitable. It's just a matter of we're talking about when as opposed to if. So yeah, I wasn't that bent out of shape about it, but for me, we can talk more about it. I think I would like to see some more content. Come sooner or later, but I'm patient. I can wait for it. So that was me. Elise, what about you?
My answer was, my first impression was, that makes sense. That's why it's felt like we've been in purgatory for the last year.
Yeah.
So it felt like justification of what I was already feeling. If you remember from my wish for BioWare for the new year, I asked that they make a decision about what they were going to do with the game. That they either needed to fund it and do it correctly or shut the thing off.
Yeah.
And this article just kind of was like, oh, okay.
Kind of vindicating.
Well, they were basically haven't decided that they actually were going to do that or not. So, and obviously there's some more stuff. I've been very interested in Anthem. And just hearing all of that and everything else, I've always wondered, what are they going to do with Star Wars: The Old Republic? We can get into more of that later, but and I really don't feel like I'm sitting here banging the drum saying I want the game to end. That's absolutely not the case. And to be honest with you, I don't even think they'd shut the servers off. They haven't shut the servers off for anything. You can get online and play Ultima Online.
You can play Diablo 2 if you want.
You can get on. Yeah, but that's Blizzard. That makes sense. But you can play Mass Effect 3 multiplayer still. There are full lobbies on the weekends still. And you can buy the weapons. Isn't that awesome?
Elise and I got on there one night and played. She was like, oh yeah, do this. I'm like, I'm going to die. Oh, I'm going to die.
Hey, we can do that again anytime you want, by the way.
Right.
I'm always
My new computer will be here in a couple weeks.
And you can buy the weapon packs too. There are still people trying to finish out their manifests, their weapons manifests in that game. They're still buying the loot crates, basically. So it's not going to go away regardless of what they do. It's just whether or not they put new content in, and we're going to see. But
yeah.
So there's my answer.
Redna, first impressions.
Well, now I have to respond to my first impression to you and Elise. The irony is that you guys feel like it's been in purgatory, and quite literally for the past year, I've finally felt like the game has been giving me content again. Whereas we had 2 expansions that gave me nothing to play. Literally.
What a true...
They gave me some story content, but otherwise there was nothing of value for me, and I didn't even like the story. So now I've been getting new GSF, I've been getting new PvP, I've been getting new flashpoints, I've been getting new operations, boss fights, I've been getting new... Everything in this game has been touched, including some desperately needed UI improvements, new features that are being presented. They finally got CXP into something that I think is actually what they should have launched with in the first place. Like, from my standpoint, I've been getting content all year. So the fear that, oh God, they're going to shut the game down wasn't there. For me, and to tie that into what my initial reaction on the article was of course it was fed to me like, oh, look what they said about SWTOR. So being the stubborn type I am, I actually read the article from start to finish. Right. And then I looked at some of the reactions and I'm like, there's a lot of boo-hooers complaining about 2 or 3 sentences in an article that had nothing to do with my video game moving on. That was pretty much my takeaway. And I've moved beyond that, but that was my initial takeaway from the article.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, so let us send to chat the question, the poll question that we put out there. Elise, if you would like to guide us through this.
So we asked the community what their impression of the Kotaku article that we're talking about, what their feelings were about the game after reading the article. So the actual question is, my level of expectation that SWTOR will be switched to maintenance mode in the near future is very high, high, medium, low, and very low. So if the chat would like to vote themselves, they may do so now.
Just by putting in the letter that corresponds to the item that you would like to pick out of that list.
So that would be V, H, M, L, or I think we should make it VL.
By that she means A, B, C, D, and E.
Okay.
Yeah, you can just put A, B, C, D, and E order.
That's better.
Yeah. It's a lot simpler.
My parents always told me to shoot for A's, but I don't agree with it in this circumstance.
Okay. So then don't.
Are you a D student?
A, B, C, D. I might be an E student. We should remove E from our selection and just make F. Then I'll just strive to at least be the worst.
I'm amazed at how diverse chat seems to be already.
Good.
That's a good thing.
Good.
Okay, so yeah, we usually at this point we say, okay, well, what do we all think? I think maybe our answers to the poll will be clear from what we all said.
I would actually, before the 4 of us respond, I would like to know what you define as maintenance mode.
What I define as maintenance mode?
Or each of you, but like I've been hearing people talking about maintenance mode out of the blue, and I'll be perfectly honest, to me, it just sounds like a new way to try and say the game is dying.
Yeah. Well, okay, here's what I would say is, and maybe you guys can agree with, let me offer you an option here, and you guys can pick it apart. What I would say is maintenance mode, quote unquote, is when they leave the game running. They leave the servers on, but they stop supporting the game. So no more, no more story, no more UI adjustments, no more GSF, no more. They don't work on it besides maintaining the servers.
So no class balance changes,
nothing.
No bug fixes, no.
And just leave it going until the community eventually decides to stop playing it, whenever that happens to be.
Now, to be honest with you, I would say that I have seen other games that were, quote, in maintenance, even by the developers. statements, but they do a tiny bit of things if they obviously break. But they don't actually like make any like major content additions to it or class balance or any of that.
No
kind
more
of stuff.
DLCs, no more
Correct.
no
more
game
DLCs,
updates or
no new weapons.
So they'll leave the Cartel Market on, but they won't be adding new to it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So point of sale.
So they can make their money.
Forever.
Exactly.
Correct. And that's exactly what they
Black
did
die
with
packs.
with
Black on black die packs and things like that people actually pay real money for. Those will now forever be there, and so the GTN will tank, and eventually people will just go away.
They're waiting for you to die of boredom.
Effect 3. You can still buy the weapon packs in that on that, but they haven't been adding anything to it since I think 2014.
No idea.
Or I'm sorry,
playing it in 2017.
2013 something. It's been a really long time.
Does that work for maintenance mode? Do we all? I think we may all tend to kind of agree with that working definition. Does anyone want to add or subtract anything?
Will people still have to be my question is though, will people still have to be a sub to do content like operations and stuff then at that point? Because if they're no longer putting out content that I would want to subscribe to, it's like, well, why would you make people pay? Alrighty then. Why would you make people pay for something that you're not giving them anything new to, you know?
Right.
I don't know how they would do it, but I would not see them being jerky about that if they were to do that, but I could be wrong. I would think they would open it back up again.
If I was the game producer, I would instruct them, my devs, to basically open up everything, put everything on the Cartel Market. Every pack that there's ever been, put it on there. Every item that's ever been in the Cartel Market, just put it all on there. Open it up to free-to-play so everyone can free-to-play everything. And then just run the servers. And just let people die of boredom, essentially. When there's 23 people playing, then you just turn it all off.
Yeah, but I mean, to offer you a devil's advocate about that, how many emulators out there are there running really old games? Or the legacy server for WoW that had 300,000 plus subscribers to it who actually had to donate to keep those going, of vanilla WoW, that they got a cease and desist order from Blizzard because it was that popular. So, I mean, I guess there's different ways of looking at at that.
Well,
if
I
the
think
community takes it up and then decides to create, whatever. There had to be a reason why those people were playing on a separate server, vanilla WoW.
Well,
and willing to pay something.
I would say that at the stage that it becomes a loss, that's when I would probably begin to make that decision. Okay, we need to figure out how to wind this down now. Actively wind it down. Because as long as it's out there and the people are using microtransactions or whatever, and it's essentially paying for itself, as long as we're breaking even, who cares? With what it's costing to run the servers. But as soon as it becomes a loss to the company, then yeah. I'm personally, that's what I would do. Run from the business perspective. Not that I have a clue what I'm doing.
So I'll just go ahead and lead with the fact that I would put myself at very low by that definition of maintenance mode. Okay.
Did you answer E in chat, Ridna? E was very low, right?
I'm not in the chat.
I would like.
He says E.
Who says E?
Redna says E. He counts as an E.
Oh, good. I kind of would like us to define what future is, near future is.
Wow, we are splitting hairs tonight. Oh, I don't know.
I would say within the next 5 years, because
5 years.
Well, think about this.
Oh, then I have to reassess my.
No, I'm saying like WoW's been for over 10 years, right? WoW's been online for over 10 years, and nobody thinks SWTOR is going to last that long. So I say within 5 years, not like 5 years plus.
I think you can bring that window down.
I was placing near term as a year, and the debate would be around 3 months, not 5 years.
I definitely was
5
not
years is way off in the future.
This is interesting to me because, I mean, it's every one of us brings our assumptions to this question, right? We all define this for ourselves and then answer it according to our own definitions. So,
Yeah.
for me, it was 2. I was thinking 2 years for the...
I was thinking 2 years minimum.
I was thinking 1.
Well, someone's
Okay.
a pessimist.
Well, then we'll say 1 to 2, in which case I'll stick with my very low.
All right, I think we've got this figured out. Okay, so let us go ahead and get chat. Can we do that? Can we move ahead with chat's answers?
Please.
All right.
Is somebody tired?
I'm just trying to think, like, even in my real life, about 2 years ago, I was making a minimum wage. I lived on the opposite side of the country. Like, that's not near term. That's an entire lifetime ago.
Yeah, if you think about it, SWTOR is what now? 6?
It was 7 if you count the beta, remember?
Yeah.
We asked.
So if we're talking
Yeah.
about a
Yeah.
5-year time span, then we're almost double the game length. I mean, we will be like at 60% of the way through the lifespan of this game, if that was the case.
Remember, they designed these games for 10-year cycles.
Right.
So we are 3/4 the way through that. And WoW really is the exception. It really isn't the stick
Right.
that
Well,
most
it's been
games
on a
should
constant
be.
decline for years anyway. It's just
Right.
because it had such a huge base at one point.
Correct.
Right.
It's got a lot further to decline from.
Well,
for
and
me,
also there's
a
that this
decade of a game.
nostalgia. I mean, that people play WoW because of the nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
And being the first game they ever played like that. And so people go back because it's comfortable and, whatever, and they're still supporting it. So I'm sorry, Redna. I'm sorry, Sakari, go ahead.
I never played a day of WoW in my life. It was too cartoony for me, and so I don't have a home. SWTOR is my home. My home shut
played
down
the
in
beta.
Galaxies.
I played the beta, and I thought pretty much the same thing as you, and thought it was really stupid. Like, all I'm doing is running around in the snow and killing things. This is stupid. So I stopped. And then about 3 months later, I had a group of friends that said, we'll pay for a year. I said, okay, fine. They bought me the game. They paid for a sub for a year. Then I played probably for 2 years after that, and then I was like, yeah, I'm not going to play anymore. And then I had a group of my friends say, but we need you in our raid group. So they paid for another year, and then I was done.
It's the social aspects that keep you stuck.
That's funny. Well, that's
Yeah,
I went back once in order to unlock a card back in Hearthstone.
Hearthstone?
Yeah, and it was just as miserable as I remembered, so I didn't continue beyond
you're
the
done.
320 levels.
All right, so chat seems
Oh,
to have
sorry.
worked out a little. Well, let's see here. Medium was the winner in chat, and everybody else seemed to be pretty well spread out right across the spectrum. We have 2 for very high, 2 for low, 2 for very low, 1 for high, and then 3 for medium. So we have that very minor bell curve. Very, very, very minor, but really it's a very flat bell. I'm amazed that... So it looks to me like we at least in chat, we have people that run the gamut on their expectations with regard to how long will this game be around.
I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm really curious how much of that vote is influenced by the perception that you guys, the distinction, the separate opinion that like you and Elise have versus what I have, where you two feel like we haven't been getting content, and I feel like I've been getting it for the past year, whereas I hadn't
And
2
I'm
years
not
prior.
here. I'm just chopped liver, so it's just me.
Well, I don't know what your opinion is. You didn't share.
You need to pick a side, Magic.
Yes.
I'll tell you.
But
I
I'm
think
curious,
it's about time that we got the multiplayer love. Okay, single players got it for too long. I need other content, and so I'm happy. That's my opinion.
Okay, so you're on Redness' side then, sounds like.
yeah, because that's
Well,
what
because
I'm
tired of
interested-
having the same story for 8 different freaking characters. I want multiplayer content. I want it to be different.
But that's not multiplayer. When you say
The new war
multiplayer-
zones, the additional bosses
Right.
for operations, multiplayer. But
GSF.
I'm saying we had one storyline for 8
Right.
different characters. That is boring. So boring that I cried. I cried. I was
Well,
so bored. I was like, I can't do this again.
It's like playing through
terrible.
KOTOR for the 8th time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Which
Yeah,
I
it's like-
did, but it was fun at that time.
But the flip side of that would be, well,
Your
what
choice is
if they
better.
brought back the class stories for each storyline? So
They gotta
you're
bring
getting
back factions
multiplayer.
first,
But what if you got, okay, faction related stuff, and then each going back to the original class stories, and they did that as the content. There are a lot of people who play this game as a single player game. So
right. Yeah, they do. They don't play any. They just log in and do their thing.
Right. And to be honest, to be fair, Keith said that 2017 was going to be basically the MMO bits, right? They said at the beginning of 2017, and they gave you, they stuck to that. They even did story in multiplayer fashion, right? Flash is a Flash.
They did before, yeah.
Right.
They did that before too.
So I mean, they stuck with what they said they were going to do. That's great. And I like some group content, but really, honestly, I really am a story first person. I make no apologies for that. I think there should be a good mix. So,
and in answer to your question, I would say that would probably be a resounding success. And at some point we'll have an episode where we actually discuss story. But every single indication is that they're just narrowing their focus on the story. I've never seen them expand. So I enjoy the story quite a bit, to the extent that that's why I've played every single one of the base classes, both light, dark, male, female, alien, human. Mm-hmm. And I only had to do it twice, because I crafted my characters accordingly to hit all those bases. But I actually wanted to see the nuance that the game had to share, because it was fascinating. With the original launch, those 8 stories were the reason I have every advanced class. I don't care about having every advanced class, but I'm really glad I do as a result of that, primarily because the story got me there. Now I can go to any character depending on what my friends need me to be playing, which is an added bonus. But I've also had the full breadth of the story experience, and it was massive. Now I'm the guy that has finished Kotfi and Kotet once.
Yay!
Congratulations!
And don't look
So
forward
finally,
to
I can stop hearing spoilers.
Well, I haven't done the IOCAT stuff, which, by the way, that was story that was released.
Well,
New
that
daily
sucks,
areas
so
as well.
okay.
There was, and led into your flashpoints. So, and I haven't done the flashpoints. And I mean, I know that they came out with the Chiss Ascendancy planet. That was a planet, right?
Copero, yes.
Okay, so it wasn't just another flashpoint.
No, it's a flashpoint.
Flashpoint.
Oh, it's a flashpoint. So there's no planet.
Umbara. That's Umbara and Copero are both flashpoints. You get to touch the planet by going through the flashpoint, or the story single player solo mode version of it. That was kind of one of the critiques I had about this new version of how they're doing things. At first, there was a whole gigantic world that you could go explore, go find datacrons on, all that kind of thing. Then they narrowed that down to something where you do a little bit of story, and then there's a daily area that you run. You can run repeatable quests on it, and now it's flashpoints. So they've been narrowing that focus, where the environments are now tied to narrower and narrower story mechanisms.
Which is part of the reason why I contest the notion that the last 2 expansions were even expansions, because they were just story updates as far as I'm concerned. Whereas an expansion that's actually built around those elements should include a whole planet, in my opinion. Right. Whereas I think an off-expansion inclusion of a planet would be the Dreadmaster's content. I think that was the most successful and perfect patch update, with story, and it had an operation, and it had the planet, and it had the daily area, and it had the reputation, and that was great. I thought that's what
they hit all the bases
from a content update.
Yeah, right? And the same thing with Shadow of Revan. Like you got all of that in one. I think that's why Shadow of Revan, and we've done a show on this, is by and large the most popular expansion of all of the ones that they've done. Is for that very reason.
Mm-hmm. And that wasn't actually an entire planet. Really, it was just sections of Yavin.
Yeah, it was a step larger than a dailies area.
Everywhere in Yavin, you could only go to certain sections.
You also got Rishi.
That was disappointing to me. I wanted to do some tomb exploration on Yavin, and when it was like, "What? This is what we got," that was a disappointment to me.
I mean, so it's okay if you're going to do them.
Then Yavin 4. So it's not like it was just one little dailies area. It's not like you got CZ, you got Rishi, you got Yavin 4, and you got 2 operations. So.
No.
I mean, yes, exploration-wise, it wasn't grand, but it was way better than what we got this time.
And I will be the dick that mentions that we did not get 2 planets. We got a planet and a moon. Yavin 4 is a moon. Okay? And that's why
Oh my
I said
goodness.
when it came out. That's exactly what I said when I came in. I was like, wait a second. I thought the Yavin moon. I thought that's what it was. I thought Yavin 4 was a moon. Sorry, my daughter.
Just now you know they'll reclassify it as a not a moon. All
Yeah,
right, we
it's a-
do need to get.
It's not a planet.
All right.
We need to
Let me
get
go
to
with
our
the poll
results.
results so we can move on to the chit chat part. So according to the community results, that's not in the chat. The number 1 answer was very high at 30% or 41 votes. Next was low at 33 votes or 24%. Very low at 30 votes or 22%. Medium at 18 votes or 13%, and high at 15 votes and 11%. And that was out of a total of 137 votes.
And apologies for the low. Usually we're able to get really high poll numbers, but we just posted this one very late.
Yeah.
And so I think
It's
137
actually
is still a chunk of people, but
I abstained.
I got 21, 4, 22, 14, and 10 because I'm looking at the current poll. There were
Right.
6 more.
for me, what immediately stands out in that poll is how you have very high top category and then low is the next one. Right? It's you just think, okay, I would think that there would be a conclusive result to this poll if very high was the first one, high was the second one, medium was the third one, and declining like that. I'd say, okay, it seems like the community is worried that this game is going to terminate. What I think we have here is like a total diversity where people are polarized essentially on this, like, and I think if you stack low and very low together, you have more people that think that this game is going to be around for a while. Then
you've got 46% think it has a low chance if you combine the two,
yes,
as opposed to 39% if you combine the high and very high. So, which is still very close.
Medium?
Frankly.
it's still
Because
polarized.
medium's
That's
in
for
the
sure.
middle.
Just medium to me just is. I'm not sure. I don't have enough evidence
Undecided,
to make a
yeah.
decision, basically.
And medium was decently small. So to me, I think what we're seeing is that I think we're definitely seeing that the community is polarized on this question: is the game going to be around? I am happy to see that there's a lot more people saying no, because usually the loudest voices are the ones that say this game is dying, and you've got a chunk of people out there that are like, no, it's going to be around for a while.
And I think that, there's a direct, so there's two things, right? Because, okay, of course, the natural response of some people is fear-mongering, don't believe the hype, right? Okay, well, there's also some truth, and there may be things to discuss, which is what we'll cover. But on the flip side, I think what I feel like, especially since high is at the bottom and very high is at the top, but to me that means that there are some people that feel extremely invested in this game, but are concerned, deeply concerned about whatever it is, wherever they're getting their information, something's triggered them that they're really worried. That's what I see from that very high number. Right. Whereas there's the rest is basically like skeptical.
Yeah, I think I would say that's fair.
I think too, we need to, since I would put myself in that concerned group, I guess I'm never, when I don't ever think that saying it's dying applies, but that doesn't mean that I'm not worried. The game doesn't have to be dying for EA or BioWare or both to decide to turn it off.
Yeah.
Right.
So that is when I answer.
That's not the question.
My concern is very high. That is where I'm coming from.
Right.
They could turn it off because of business decisions or staffing decisions or monetary decisions.
Now,
I'm still triggered, but
they're like, point, you know what'll make Elise mad? Boom, shut it off. And then we can all hear Elise rant. They're like, bye-bye, Elise.
Oh my God.
Well, and to that point then, actually, I would have a question for you. Like, what do you know of any previous games where that happened, where it had a fairly thriving game community that was invested, that the company just decided it didn't meet, whatever business goals, and they turned it off.
I mean, now it depends on how you defined thriving or giving it a chance, but Andromeda had 3 months of
I was
being
gonna
out.
say that was pretty quick, wasn't
Okay,
it?
but I'm thinking more like an MMO.
I've only really played this one. So I've never played any in the past. That would be more of a Sakari answer.
Okay.
Star Wars
Well,
Galaxy.
even then. So I would say this. Okay, so what would worry me would be not necessarily, and this is, let me build this real quick. What would worry me would not necessarily be whether they keep putting content out or not. It would be, are my friends still playing? Because I remember back in the day in Star Wars Galaxies, I would have played that game till it was dead. I loved that game. Even with that wretched NGE that wrecked the thing, I still liked the game. It was my first MMO, so that's. But one night I remember sitting there, and I had been playing for like 3 weeks, and all of my friends had quit, and I had become like I was a highly social gamer. We were doing the dungeons together. We were grouping together for missions, and I was running guilds and doing all kinds of role playing, everything. And I was running solo content because nobody else was on, and that's when I quit. Was because my friends quit. And I mean, we've had people in chat say, I started for the story. I came to SWTOR for the story. I was doing the story, but I got into a guild and I made some friends. And then I stay because we're doing operations together. We're doing PvP together. We're hanging out and doing events together. So I think you come for the one and you get one over to the other. And then when the community dies, in the end, it's kind of like a chain reaction. Like the more the community dies, the faster the community dies. And I think at that point, that's what would worry me. I think as long as my friends are still playing, I'm good in this game.
Mm-hmm. I would say that's what I have observed as well.
And so part of the thriving community remark that I would make is that we still have complaints about conquests where we have guilds that actually have multiple guilds that they filled up and are competing to decimate any competitive edge anybody else can make, right? Like there are that many guilds that can do that. There are that many people still playing, invested, even trying to do that kind of engagement. And even our guild is fairly, successful. They've just invested significant money into making the mega servers, essentially. In order to protect against that notion, that feeling that, because certain servers the community moves off of them, you don't want the people that do remain to quit playing the game entirely. Instead, you just re-inject them back into what is a more accurate representation of the health of the game.
Unfortunately, some people leave servers because of people, and then when those servers merge with the servers that they ran away from, then you got a whole new can of worms.
Yeah, and BioWare has been notoriously negligent in the protection of their players, unfortunately, on that front.
I would say that there's 2 other games that have gotten close, just from the history. Now, I'd be happy if someone would tell me, because Lord of the Rings Online kind of did this, like, the company that created it got sold, and then it got picked up by another producer or another publisher, and they kind of said, well, I think we're going to put it in maintenance. No, we're not. And then they've been getting more content, right? They got a raid before we did. WildStar, every year people say it's going.
Yeah, and WildStar
every
did not
year
have the launch that we did.
So
their launch was much more.
WildStar, though, you know what I think was the issue with WildStar is that it was for a very very niche market.
Yeah,
you've got it like super tune, like people that are okay with the tuniness. That's what made me not want to do WoW. You've got to be a super tuny person to really like WildStar. So to me, like the whole,
yeah.
Well, okay. And to that point, actually, the artistic style is one that World of Warcraft claims they did it because they know that it's not going to age over time, which is really just code to say, well, when we started this game, this is what we had available to us. It's happened that it works out well because lots of people like to go back to 8-bit versions. This is kind of like that. Whereas opposed to WildStar, they say, no, we really did start the game out this way, even though it's 8 years after World of Warcraft. Except, yeah, okay, whatever, dude.
Well, I have read though that there are certain graphic types that are more of like for those that have seen what's it called, Cell something or other, where the graphic design ages better, and they deliberately do pick it that way. Borderlands, the Borderlands series is done in that style. It's kind of this like drawn realism
almost like
kind of a thing.
Almost like a comic frame kind of a thing.
It looks like a three-dimensional comic book, yeah.
Correct. And they did that deliberately because that particular graphic style tends to age better. That
I want to say Red Dead Redemption or something, some kind of game. It might have been the same style too.
So to that point, actually, I think what we're actually reaching is, and this is a topic for another day, but we are actually reaching a point where the graphics capabilities is becoming so good that not only, and also actually the tools are becoming more ubiquitous and shareable, so that you don't need to be a AAA company to even utilize tools to make extraordinarily detailed graphic games. Mm-hmm. But what that's starting to do is it's freeing up the opportunity for game developers to actually choose an artistic style and to build it that way deliberately. They're not actually being limited by the graphics near so much as they used to be, which makes it a more interesting, honestly, a more interesting media format, because people can choose to use whatever format they want and use that as an extension of the game elements that they're trying to provide.
Right.
The other problem that WildStar had was that they marketed the fact that they were actually trying to create all of their content for the end game elite. Mm-hmm. Like, not the 5%, not the 10%, but they were actually aiming for the 1%, and it turned out, well, then only 1% of the gaming population is even going to try your game.
Right. And I'm one of those. I have never been, even if I could get past the cartoony style, which, Sakari, I'm totally in your wheelhouse too. I don't like it.
Sounds good to me.
I couldn't play it.
I am a easy end game person, so I was like, yep, nope, that's not really for me.
You won't hard mode raid with me, Elise. Jeez.
Trust me, I'm sure you can find
Magic
people
is the
who
1%.
are way better than me Magic to do that.
I know. I found Aracea, so.
Now, if I can kind of direct us a little forward, since we were running out of time here. We did want to mention that since this article came out by SWTOR SWTOR and Keith.
SWTOR Keith. I think you just coined something.
I like SWTOR Keith.
It's going to stick.
In which they basically say, hey guys, we do have a roadmap. It is coming out in the middle of February. And then he teases that there's a 6.0 coming that he's not going to talk about. He says, and I definitely will not provide any information on what's included in 6.0, basically saying there is going to be one. Doesn't give us a date. But to me, my take on this was that this was actually a response to the article and the hype that was coming out of the article.
Yep.
And that he said this in order to assuage some fears. And I think that's not just a ploy. I don't think that that's a trivial statement. I think he wanted to get in front of it and say, hey, guys, yes, I do have a roadmap coming for you. There will be content coming. Hey, we even actually do have an expansion on the roadmap here. It may not be in the next 90 days, but, we have enough staff that we're working on these things right now.
Right.
And then also, for people that hadn't read the article, I think the post was there to tease the uninitiated. Like, hey, guys, here's something to get excited about.
Right. So there was something that bothered me about this, because I assumed the same thing. Okay, they're trying to get out in front of it. They know that this other article's made a big splash in the community. They're trying to say something to kind of put all of us at ease. Hey, don't worry, guys. The things are not dead. We've got stuff coming. I kind of wish that they had been more direct about it, assuming that's what this was. I mean, I can't really make that assumption, but let's say, for instance, that is what this was.
Yep.
I don't know why they just said, "Hey guys, there's an article out right now that's got a lot of you wound up, and we understand because you guys are invested in this game and you want this game to continue. Let me assure you that we've got 6.0 coming. There's we're working on a roadmap right now. Stuff's still coming out. Blah blah blah." Say the same thing.
I'll tell you why they didn't say that.
But directly mention the article, because that's what had everybody wound up. To me, that would have spoken directly to that. The fact that they didn't mention the article just made it, I don't know, it felt...
Because if they mention the article, then people go out to see...
Not shady. I wouldn't call it shady, but
I don't think shady at all. To me,
not as direct as it should have been.
They shouldn't.
Stepping around it.
They actively should not do it. And the reason is because,
draw attention
one,
to it,
it's
yeah.
not one of their properties. Two, anybody that hasn't, who's in the forums, is going to go seek it out and get themselves worked up.
Right.
There's no reason for them to
true.
lend credence to an uncited blog post, you know.
Okay.
And
No. These are good points. I mean, I'll give you
Right?
I'll give you this.
Blog
I mean, like I think it's a good counterpoint. And yeah,
whatever Kotaku is, I mean,
I think there's two reasons why
You
they
think
didn't
that
say,
they
hey,
are-
guys.
an accredited news organization.
It is an accredited news organization, but keep going.
okay,
well,
Magic, what were you gonna say? Your
I
2
wouldn't get
points.
my news from them.
I said there's two
not
reasons
practicing
why
good
they didn't say.
integrity.
Okay. There's two reasons why they didn't say, hey guys. One, that's sexist, Sakari. Jeez, get with it. Two, because if they acknowledge
Guys,
that,
it's
then they have to
non-judgmental.
acknowledge every single naysayer kind of like article that would be put out. So
Okay.
giving this person acknowledgement like, no, this person's wrong, then it's like every other person's going to jump on the bandwagon because they want to get acknowledged by BioWare, SWTOR, whatever. So by them not acknowledging it, they're not only saving face and keeping themselves out of it, they're also not playing the bait game, because then it's trying to bait the team there into giving information and or extra content information that they shouldn't. Otherwise, you know, they could just talk to Charles. Isn't that who usually gives stuff out?
Well, and
So I don't
realistically,
think they're going to.
the timing of this is right in line with when they would have been putting this kind of a post out anyway. And they generally do let us know that one's coming before they actually
But
post it.
hold on a moment. No, so Redna, okay, yes, they do say, hey, we're about to put a roadmap out. But why not just put the roadmap out? You know what I'm saying? Why make it? It's
They've never done
because
that.
I've heard Chuck and Brian, Bad Feeling Podcast. I'll bring them up again. It's been a while, but I've heard them criticize BioWare, saying, "Oh, they made a post to talk about a post." That's what this is. It's like, hey guys, it's like a pre teaser, whereas the roadmap is the teaser to the actual content. So this is a pre teaser.
Yeah, it's a teaser instead of a trailer. But because they do this every single time, that's why. This
rather than
is their their operating procedure.
Put the roadmap.
They
out.
never just drop the roadmap. They always talk about it beforehand.
Correct. I do agree with that, but also it's just not their way, BioWare's way. I'm not going to talk about SWTOR. I'm talking about BioWare. They never come out and directly contradict anything. They sat there and even told the investors in June that they were hiring more people for EA Motive to help build that studio for Jade Redmond. And then they had to come back and go, well, actually, we're moving all those people over because they're not working side by side. They're actually in the same studio, and BioWare Montreal is not.
I feel like they never actually answer a question. Somebody says something and they never talk directly to it. They kind of
They've been studying
skirt by
politicians.
it. You know what I'm saying? Exactly.
No.
It's like they don't really
But
actually
you're right.
ever say anything. Or address anything. They kind of just.
But you're right. And even with the inclusion of Keith in the community and sharing, being much more communicative, they are communicating to us quite a bit more. But they've never heavily engaged in communicating with their community or anybody outside of BioWare. Like, this is how they communicate. And I mean, love it or leave it, That's just the way their business works.
I really don't. My about stuff is not SWTOR. I really do think that group of people are really trying, and I think they would love to talk more. But it is BioWare's way of what they do on all their properties. They do this stuff.
Right.
So, I mean,
see what I'm saying? They skirt by, but they don't actually say the word.
right. And then say it when it's already out. And when again, BioWare Montreal was closed. Somebody actually asked Ask a Game Dev on Tumblr about that situation, and that person came back and said, yeah, we knew about it 2 months before they came out because everybody knows somebody who's working there, and the news was out amongst the developers. And also, if you looked for it, if you knew what you were looking for, there was this mass exodus of fairly prominent developers that were working with the community that all of a sudden were going on sabbatical and taking vacations. And then they'd come on Twitter and talk about the new studio that they were at. So if you knew looking back, you could see the signs that were littered along the way that bad things were happening. But
Right. It's almost like what you have to do is fly a helicopter.
news, everything was fine. It was like that meme with the fire and the person sitting there drinking the coffee. That's exactly what was happening.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
so you have to fly a helicopter over them and then trank them and then land and then like put a chip in their ear so that you know where their movement is.
and then get them drunk if you want to hear anything.
If you really want the truth. We've tried it with Musco and he's insanely resilient to that kind of thing.
he is. Too at the meetup, and
I have
I
seen
need to meet
firsthand.
him and make contest about it, like 1 for 1.
So-
you know, everyone I can keep going, then you have to tell us something
I
important.
have seen firsthand Elise put Musco through the grill, like question. Okay, it's interview time. I've seen it happen, and he just does the little dance, the little Musco dance.
So
Yeah.
So let me just to close. I wanted to ask Elise. Let me summarize to an extent with going back to the article generally. Let's make an assumption that Star Wars: The Old Republic is still a financially viable entity on its own, right? And move from that to what the article seems to be saying to be more than anything else is that BioWare as a company hasn't particularly launched anything successfully in 4 or 5 years? Like it's been
2014 was their last
success.
critical and financial success.
Okay.
Andromeda did make money, and it was mentioned in their annual year report for EA that year.
That's why there's
Right.
pressure on Anthem.
But
It did make money. So
to my thought, if I'm reading this correctly, is the reason people are concerned about SWTOR is because they've done this for other games before, but they are redirecting many of their staff and what they're working on to focus it on Anthem. Anthem had a troublesome start, but has by all accounts gotten through its production woes and is supposedly working well towards an end goal, but they need to staff up for the launch and make sure this is successful. EA has drawn a line in the sand when they have to publish by, which is not always, but more often than not, a bad sign, because that means they're going to try and rush it out to get it out in time rather than to be finished.
And it's going to be in November for Christmas game sales, right?
nope.
It's not?
They pushed the release date back to
2019.
2019. It'll
First
be March
quarter.
2019.
First quarter, wow.
For
Which
their
is
fiscal year
exactly
end.
what they did for Andromeda. Andromeda was supposed to release the holidays in 2016.
I wonder if that's
So-
a good thing. I'm going to have to think
So
about
to
that.
me, it seems
Think how bad it would have been if they hadn't done that.
I know.
So to me, it seems completely reasonable and even rational from a business perspective that when you had a significant number, well, not a significant number, but it's been a while since you've had a good, solid release and launch and success, that, basically, especially knowing that your parent company is EA and they're watching and they're putting this line in the sand, that, okay, we really do need to be successful with Anthem, because otherwise, effectively, SWTOR is the only thing we've got ongoing that is driving our revenue. And can we even survive with EA as the parent company with a single game that is driving continuous revenue? Even if it's not massive, it's continuous, right? So no, I think the simple answer to that is no, they can't. So they have to succeed with Anthem.
Did you ask me a question?
So my question for you is, first of all, is that a fair assessment? And then the extension of that is, say they fail at Anthem. That's the fear and concern I think that we're looking at. What happens to SWTOR? Does SWTOR get wiped off the board, or does it become like The Sims, where the parent company is gone, but the game continues to run?
Okay, two things. I have never thought they were going to shut it down this year. Even if I took worst case scenario of what I was reading and what I was believing, because they need to have that game to pass off to. That's what they've done historically for years. They've always wanted to have at least one game to feed into the next one and the next one. In my opinion, that's what SWTOR is doing right now. If Andromeda had been successful and if Battlefront 2 had been wildly successful, I don't know if I would be as confident. And that might be where that quote is coming from. However, those two have gone.
SWTOR might have
So
gone from
SWTOR
possibly shuttering to being up in the air because actually SWTOR is the one carrying us right now.
Correct. That is just my opinion and a theory. I don't have any evidence to say that except for historical patterning. Now, my concern is what happens in 2019 and 2020. So we know Anthem's not coming along because BioWare has not been good. They really don't understand MMOs. They really don't know how to run them. And I don't honestly believe they can do too well, in my personal opinion. That is my personal.
I have the optimistic point of view of just maybe they're putting all their eggs in Anthem's basket and they're rushing everybody over there to make Anthem just, top notch and blowing everybody out of the water. And then once Anthem's like on its, it's got its sea legs and it's ready to roll, then they'll start filtering people back to SWTOR and we'll get better content. I know, I'm optimistic. Nobody believes me, but I can do that and you can't stop me. You can't take that from me.
You believe whatever you want, dear.
I'm going to.
And I mean, so if Anthem does bad, that was the second question, right? They didn't have a problem shutting BioWare Montreal, even knowing that they might need to pull those people in to help with Anthem. So they closed it. They also shuttered Visceral while it was working on a Star Wars game with high, talent, with the capital T, working on it. Didn't have a problem doing that. And it's also, it was a storied studio as well. I am seriously concerned about what he is going to do with BioWare if they do not do well. And then I don't know what they're going to do with this game, but if we talk about 10-year cycles, I mean, what are they going to do with a game that is 7, 8, 9 years old? So that is just the worst case scenario. Fear. My last thing before we go, remember, this particular author for this article is a New York Times op-ed writing, wrote a book with multiple cited sources, including the new executive producer of, he's always been the Dragon Age executive producer, Mark Dara, but now he's Anthem's. He's double rolling that. Multiple BioWare people were cited in his book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, about the development of that game. And BioWare was okay with him doing that and having it published and having them go on record about the development. Those sources don't go away. So believe it, don't believe it, that's up to you. But he's not a blogger who just put out a Tumblr article pulling crap out of his butt. And all of his scoops that he came out with in Destiny and also Andromeda all were proven true in the end. Does that mean that this one is automatically true? No.
Right.
But I wouldn't point at this particular author and say he's making it up, because he has had sea legs and he does have sources and he does have street cred, and he's the news editor for Kotaku. So
I almost never tell somebody that they're straight up lying. I prefer to have some kind of proof. I'm just saying, I like to have proof and be like, really? Well, look at this. Are you sure about that? I like to do that little number. I don't like to just be like, you're lying, and then have nothing to back it up.
Well, that's part of the reason why I wanted to point out that, from a business standpoint, a lot of what has been stated concerning the direction that they're taking to shift assets around in order to focus on a game that needs to be successful, these things seem very rational and reasonable to me. The SWTOR statement seemed awfully just tossed out there and also contradicted itself and really didn't lead anywhere, although your point actually to the fact that it could be an indication that they had been considering it but had actually changed their mind because SWTOR was the successful one actually makes it a little bit more, makes some sense to me. And the reason anybody might have some concern, why Elise points out that this is a very well vetted, dependable journalist, is because throughout this entire article, he does not name sources. He talks about sources, and talks about different sources and that this source said that and that source said this, and mentions when sources contradict each other, which is to his credit. But it's also worth mentioning that, you also have to always take that kind of information with a grain of salt. And also, he's also not really trying to exclusively predict the future. He was just saying this looks like the roadmap from a business standpoint, and here are some possible outcomes.
Yeah, right.
And that's all I got to say about it. You got anything, Magic?
Muted.
Just getting wound up.
And she muted herself too.
Hold on, let's do a lip reading, a bad lip reading.
Yeah. I hit mute at the last second because my daughter goes, and I thought she was going to scream, and I hit mute and forgot all about it. So anyways, no, I have nothing else to say. Kidley wants to keep the show going. He wants us all to crack open drinks, and I think that's probably a bad idea. So sorry, Kidley. It's a no-go. So my last thing to say is thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching, participating in chat, participating in our straw poll. Thank you for loving the game. Whether you're currently playing it or not, that doesn't matter. We love it anyways. We love you. We love the game. We love that you love it. And that you may possibly love us, or at least one of us. Anyways, thank you for showing up tonight. We appreciate it.
And that brings us to the end of the episode. The council is adjourned. If you'd like to reach us, you can email us at thecouncil@thecouncilswotor.com. You can find Elise on Twitter at abrown35, Magic Ace at TheMagicAce, me at R3DN4, and Sakari at I Am Sakari. Don't forget to visit our website, www.thecouncilswotor.com, and follow us on social media. Also, don't forget our Patreon page at patreon.com/thecouncilswotor. That's it for this week, guys. I find your lack of faith disturbing.
For the Empire.
Have a good week, guys.
I understand.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
What? How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair. How can you be on the council and not be a master?
Take a seat, young Skywalker.
Forgive me, Master.